Welcome, Europe, to another Tuesday conversation organized by New Europeans. And tonight we're trying to engage or bring Europeans closer by talking about something that I'm sure interests most people. What is the good life? My name is Povl Henningsen. I sit in Denmark, south of Aarhus, the second biggest city, and I will moderate a conversation. And with me tonight on screen, I have four so far distinguished members that will engage in conversation with me. The program will be live streamed, so that means we hope Facebook viewers will engage in the conversation as well by maybe asking questions to us that we'll then take up in our conversation on screen. So feel free, ask questions if you want to. But let us take a tour of the screen and hear who is here. And I'll start on my screen with Daniela. Briefly tell us, who are you? Where are you located? Before we dive into the conversation.
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Daniela. I am now located in Brussels, although I'm originally from Italy and Romania. And I've been a member of New European since September. I am mainly part of the social media team, so I will be jumping in with comments from Facebook viewers today, taking care of bringing their views to you. So yes, have a wonderful conversation.
Thanks a lot, Daniela, and we'll move on to Daniel Panizza.
Hello, Daniel here, Italian, speaking from Milan. I am a co-founder of a coaching company called Easier. And with my business partner, what we do is we provide contexts for people who want to get the best out of themselves. And we do that by helping them see that the best way, the best leverage point to do so is to find an inner connection with something bigger, and to find this impersonal way of being in the world that feels lighter and at the same time much more effective.
Mm-hmm. And you have a coaching company, you say?
Yes.
So your life is going on screen right now, right? You don't meet clients, do you?
Absolutely. At the moment, 100% on screen.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. And Michael.
Hello, good evening, Povl. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Arapis. I'm originally from Athens, Greece, but I'm based here in Cardiff, in Wales, in the United Kingdom. I'm a member of the board of the New Europeans Association Limited, and I have the position of the honorary treasurer. I'm also the chair of the New Europeans here in Wales. I'm involved with research on cybercrime and terrorism, and I'm the vice president of the Greek community of South Wales.
Thanks a lot, Michael. And we'll dive more into your story as well. Now we move on to Eileen.
Good evening, everyone. And I'm Eileen. Thanks, Povl, for introducing us. I'm based in Belfast, and I'm also a board trustee of the Europeans Association with Michael. I would represent the Northern Ireland and Ireland, the island of Ireland in our issues in European matters. And I would also be a member of the Migrant and Minority Ethnic Council here in Northern Ireland, so I'm the vice chair of that. Apart from that, I'm also founder of CRAC NI, which stands for Cultivate Respect, Appreciate Inclusion Across Cultures, and we're an inclusion and diversity training organization.
All right, so we have people who all have somehow a mission in life, it seems. Something you want to achieve for yourself and for others. Let's try to start right away with the subject and have spontaneous feelings about the topic. What's the good life? And let me start with Eileen first. Eileen, for you personally, what is a good life?
For me personally, I think they always say health is wealth. So being healthy in mind and enjoying your life as much as you can. I think having all the opportunities to learn and to appreciate what we have.
But if you think about health, it seems that a lot of people have trouble right now with health
Yes.
because of COVID. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, I hope for those who are concerned, that their health is a matter of being able to cope with it. I think it's also about the person themselves, building up their own strategies for it. I mean, when we went into the period of lockdown, Northern Ireland's still in lockdown since the 26th of December. It's quite endless. At this stage, it's a matter of resilience, a matter of mind over matter, and maybe also because my own Chinese culture background, we believe in building in part of our immune system. So health to me, I mean, I enjoyed the period of lockdown to understand eating food in a better way. Food, as you said, is one way of connection, but to me, it's about eating a lot better than I used to. So I think it's important at this period to have all the other factors, apart from the vaccination. I think the human body needs to learn to be able to train its body.
How did you change your diet? May I ask about that?
Well, my diet was crazy. I think at the beginning of lockdown, I went to Asia's supermarket, and it's an amazing supermarket. I'm not just being biased here, but I brought in, I have garlic and ginger daily. Also brought in turmeric into my diet. We've always had more green vegetables in Chinese culture growing up, so that's much more in my diet. I cook a lot more often, to the point where I think it's laughable. Colleagues and friends have asked me to do videos in cookery. I was known as the child, or my brother would laugh at me, I was known as the sister who couldn't cook before. And yet now people are asking me to make videos. I'm brain dead presentation, but I'm the most messiest cook ever. So, but that's to me a good life. A good life is about that feeling, and I think COVID brings it back home. I don't know how everybody else feels across Europe, but for those who don't have extended families here, I have only one brother and his family. I can't see them because we're only allowed a 10-mile radius at the minute. For me to be home with my two sons is very, very important, and to enjoy good food together, to eat together. I mean, those opportunities are very precious. And I think, times before we probably didn't appreciate it.
So you've changed your way of looking at things. I mean, appreciate stuff that you didn't appreciate maybe as much before.
I think so. I mean, the last Friday was the last day of Chinese New Year, which is called the Lantern Festival, but it's also a day that marks the full moon. So we would eat dumplings, round-shaped dumplings. I was laughing with my Polish colleague about dumplings, by the way, and I don't know which other countries eat dumplings, but there are sweet dumplings and they represent the moon. So the night I made them, my niece was making them about 70 miles away from me. And my mother was cooking them in Hong Kong. And there's a picture I've made of a collage, and we all have 5 dumplings each in our bowls. So if you can think of connection and the power of food, we might as well have been together, but it is nice. It's nice. Food is really, really important. So,
I mean, we can talk more about the importance of food as a part of the good life. I think that's what maybe many Europeans agree about. Thanks, Eileen. Let's move on to Danielle, and let's get your sort of spontaneous view on the good life from your perspective.
Well, I guess I have to talk about pizza now, because we were talking about food. So pizza is definitely part of a good life. No, jokes aside, I think obviously connections. I think one of the things that this period has taught us is the importance of connection. And of course, food is one way of connecting with other people. Consuming food by yourself is a very different experience than consuming food with someone else, someone you care about. There's this nourishing aspect that you want to share with other people. And of course, Chinese culture, which I know a bit of, is big on this, and I come from Italy, so I don't think I need to add anything else. Even if I'm not a very good cook. In fact, I don't cook at all, but I like good food still. So again, the thing is, I think that core teaching is there's value in connection, and when we are forced to be by ourselves, obviously we realize that we need other people. There's a more superficial layer of us being able to connect via technology. But one of the things I'm noticing right now is, for example, I'm talking freely, I'm just thinking aloud. Many people tell me now that at the beginning they were excited about this, about working from home, for example. Whereas now they, I know a lot of people who really crave to go back to offices or to find other ways to have physical, real, meaty connection with people. So that's one thing. We're obviously learning a lot about the importance of the environment. I don't know. I think basically when you isolate people and you give them a chance, you give them space and a chance to reconnect with what really matters, it's kind of natural to, realize that basically what you want is to share something with other people. Mm-hmm. If you take one single cell, you isolate a cell from all the others, the cell lets itself die. It just dies because there's no project, there's no life project going on. And I think that this is very interesting. At a human level, it's a bit more complicated than that, because of course you can still feel an inner connection to something big, even if you're not physically relating to people. Mm-hmm. But I think that the same principle applies. It seems to me more and more that we are all trying to go past boundaries. And we all have our own ways to do that. Mm-hmm. Even, people, sex is basically one way of losing yourself into someone else. Mm-hmm. So it's about, crossing a boundary. Any community, obviously, is a way to do that. Mm-hmm. A family, a company, whatever. It really seems to me that there is no meaning, there is no good life, to summarize, sorry, because I'm rambling a bit too much. There is no good life unless there's some kind of shared experience, something that is bigger than you.
Yeah. So we'll touch more on this, the importance of relations for a good life, of family, friendship, and stuff like that. But I'd like to give the screen to Michael. Let's hear about a Greek view.
Right, Povl. Actually, I totally agree with some of the points that they were raised earlier from Eileen and from Daniel. Obviously, it's a very difficult time for everyone. We shouldn't forget that we're actually 1 year on into this crisis that changed our lives. Well, and I'm not sure if it will be forever, but I mean, it changed basically our way of life, at least for 1 year, and logically for some period, for some months to come, even years, because some of the ways that we're actually conducting our day-to-day activities and businesses and lives will change, especially with work from home, remote learning. So that has affected education and businesses. So perhaps I should simply say that here in the UK, or we have a program of vaccination. So more than 20 million people have actually been vaccinated. at least they have received the first dosage of the vaccine. And therefore, I believe that we are towards a way to normality. However, sadly, we have exceeded 123,000 deaths and 4.18 million people have contracted that disease so far, which means that we have countless families that are grieving. This has affected the mental health of a great number of people, obviously in the UK, but in general across the world. In terms of food, yes, and having the standard things that we were able to enjoy up until recently, let's say to meet up with friends, family, or simply to travel. I'm assisting people that are traveling, and it's a nightmare to try to fill all these PLF forms that people have to complete, and then obviously they have to take these very expensive tests prior to their flights, and of course upon arrival they need to have a rapid test, and then on the way back. So in total they must have at least 5 tests, and then you have to add up the time that you are wasting, obviously, from your life when you have to wait, and of course to isolate. So this has affected people, has affected the economy. We cannot really enjoy the most basic things. I'm looking forward to a time that we will be able to do the most natural thing, which is to go for coffee, or simply to go to a lovely Greek restaurant to eat souvlaki. Or you can go to eat pizzas, burgers, whatever anyone wants. Things that we were able to do, and perhaps this should be a point for us to appreciate the most fundamental things in life, which is the freedom to travel, and of course to realize how important, as Eileen said, is to have our health. And lately when I'm sending birthday messages and everything, I'm not saying anything else anymore apart from wishing to the person who is celebrating simply to have their health.
Yeah. Have you been traveling during COVID yourself? Have you been traveling?
Actually, no, I haven't been away from the UK since November 2019. So I was planning to travel last year. I didn't. I don't want to travel. In fact, I wanted to go to visit Athens. I didn't because I was afraid, especially last year, that inadvertently I might cause problems to my relatives. But some of them are quite elderly. So I was afraid because it wouldn't really be ideal to travel in these conditions. And so I wasn't only afraid of my own health, but primarily I was afraid about the health of friends and family. That's why I didn't. And now with all these restrictions and the delays and how expensive it actually is to travel, a lot of people are thinking it twice, if you like, even if they want to make a simple journey to visit their loved ones. So
so you're very limited in terms of movement for you as everybody else, I guess. Okay, let's move on to a younger voice. Daniela.
Yeah, hi. Well, thanks for asking my opinion. Actually, we have among the comments, we have someone, Erinula from Greece, I suppose, who says that good life means opportunities for young people and freedom. And maybe others then want to follow up on this comment. But I would also say that, well, of course, saying opportunities for young people goes into more, very political and social policy issues. I would say, however, the freedom aspect is even more important. I would say that a good life in general, the only kind of common thread to what has been said so far that I can find and that can apply to everybody would be the ability to choose for yourself what the good life is. And given your current circumstances, so of course we are in the middle of a health crisis, and health has been I mean, mentioned so far, I think one of the most important things. So we hope that now our objective is to really get out of it. I am indeed a young person, so I would also relate to the part of the comment that says opportunities for young persons, people with. I mean, I come from Italy, so I can also relate to a bit to the situation in Greece, where it's kind of hard to finish your studies in the middle of a pandemic and enter the job market. So for us, it's been a bit detrimental, even in this sense, not only from the health perspective. So yes, we really hope that we'll be able to change something in the next months.
But a good life is a job, isn't it?
Well, I guess a good life if life is to be able to set some objectives for you and be allowed to pursue them, of course, as long as those don't collide with the freedom of others or the objective of others. So yes, I would say so.
But this point about the others, is a good life doing stuff for others?
Well, I think it really depends on the person.
Yeah.
For myself, it is. I mean, I've chosen to dedicate my life to the field of asylum and migration, not only because it's a great field, but yeah.
Why do you do that? Why bother about refugees?
Well, I really think, well, as I said so far, I really think that a good life is about being able to pursue the objectives that you set for yourself. And in Europe, especially, there are many who are not allowed to pursue their objectives because they are non-citizens and cannot really be voice their concerns to governments and to EU institutions. So we need actually EU citizens who do that for them. Or try to engage them, of course. The EU has been doing that recently, but we need more in that sense.
But I think I'd like to ask you, Eileen, also, is why do you do what you do in your organization? Why bother about that? What's driving you?
In terms of training and inclusion diversity, around 2014, there were over 921 racist incidents in Northern Ireland. It's substantially high compared to sectarian incidents. Given that the population is very, very small, we have 1.83 million, and yet, ethnic minorities is under 0.03% of that. So if you think of that, those numbers are particularly high. I think for me in 2014, there was a rally for racism, and I was asked to speak at it. Over 4,000 people turned out for it. And I remember standing there, Daniela just brought it back to me. I remember standing there at the podium, yes, I screaming, but I'm trying to voice my opinions and say, it's like, I really would not like to be here again, ever, to be standing, to be fighting against racism. Definitely not for my future generations, my sons, etc. And I hope this doesn't happen. So when it comes to inclusion diversity training, I think for myself personally, we understood that people don't have connection, as Daniel talked about. People need to meet other people from other cultures and diverse backgrounds and to get on with each other. So that's what we try to do for inclusion diversity training. My main area. Sometimes people don't understand this. Sorry. Diverse backgrounds and sorry. I'm get sorry. On with each other. So that's what we try to do. Sorry. My main area is around cultural awareness, and I don't mean awareness just by making samosas or looking at saris or whatever, but I meant being aware of other cultures and also about cultural self-awareness, being aware of yourself and your own culture and how you are. But I don't mean culture as in Italian culture. Everybody's made up of different dimensions: age, background, sexual orientation, disability, ability, employment, income. All those things make us who we are. And I think Danielle has a point. What they are is sometimes, unfortunately, they put you in a situation where you have a large inequality. And those are the areas that need to be worked on. So I suppose what drives me is how do we make opportunities to level those inequalities?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's what drives me to do it through
But
training.
would you say that the good life is to have a passion, something that you have to do? I mean, is a good life having a passion? I'm curious about that. Let me ask Michael, why do you, I mean, why do you bother about New Europeans and that organization?
I believe that this is of great importance, Povl, to try to help your fellow man, and also to ensure that the rights of EU citizens are protected here in the UK. And the same, of course, applies to the rights of UK citizens that they are based elsewhere in the EU. I mean, when we started initially, people were saying that because it was impossible, of course, to have a definite number, that we were around 3 million. Some others say 3.5, some 3.8, and so far, only via the system for pre-settled and settled status, we have more than 5 million applications. That's a staggering number, because you can imagine that the vast majority of people that I know have already obtained the UK citizenship. So they are dual citizens, let's say Italian and British, Greek and British, etc. And therefore, they didn't even take part into the settlement scheme program, which means that the number of people here in the UK massively exceeds the number of 5 million. Perhaps it's 6.5. Nobody actually knows. And all these people need to have their rights guaranteed and enshrined in law. Because and of course, the reason that I was interested about was from a legal perspective as well, from my background in law. And this was why what I studied in my first master's. So I was very much interested in to ensure that, because I was so grateful to the fact that I was born an EU citizen and I was able to come to the UK and to study for my law degree, for my first master's in law, for the second, to work, to live. And I wouldn't be able to do any of these things if it wasn't for the EU, and I wouldn't be able to have these rights. That is why I joined the New Europeans, in order to assist and to contribute and to make sure that these rights are preserved in the future.
But that means that I think you mentioned a very good word, which is called that you were grateful, and that that somehow you wanted to make a difference for other people than yourself, because you were grateful for yourself in the first place. So I would is part of the good life being able to be grateful for something. Well, and I would ask the panel here on TV: are you grateful, and what are you grateful for?
Is this for me now?
Well, I mean, you could start, and then we'll get the others. They can think.
Yeah. What I was trying to convey was the fact that, and I was trying to explain that to my compatriots as well, because this has been a very difficult task for me, and a lot of pro-European EU citizens in the UK will attest to that. That is sometimes the most difficult audience is actually the people from your own country, that they come here with their prejudices against the EU, especially during the last decade of austerity in Greece. So the most important thing for me was to try to explain how lucky we were. You know, my heart really bleeds, Povl, for the other young EU citizens, especially, let's say, from Greece and Cyprus, who wouldn't be able to come to live and study in the UK the way that I did, and the generation actually did, or perhaps two generations. And we were able to seize these massive opportunities to come to with very limited fees, with very low fees, and to be able to have that 5-star education that we received here in the UK. And that is perhaps something that initially wasn't understood, even from my compatriots. But now that they see it, they know that their relatives, their friends are unable, after they finish high school, to come to live and study in the UK. Because now the UK, the last year that actually this was able to happen, I think it was the current academic year. This is, we're talking about the end of an era, the end of free movement, the end of the opportunities for everyone.
But I think that I mean, that's a wonderful example of how somehow the good life was somehow ruined for a lot of people in a way. The freedom of movement, they could go from A to B without any problems. That's not possible any longer. So that I think that's a really important aspect of the whole European idea. But I would like to move on to sort of this general thing about is the ability to be grateful part of the good life, or how do you look at that word grateful? Is that Daniel? I mean, you live in Italy, you have a good life, probably. Are you grateful?
Yes, the way I see gratitude, there's a lot of talking about the importance of feeling grateful, etc. And you see why, because feeling grateful is great. The only thing is you can't really manufacture that. So you can't. I remember a few years ago, it was really fashionable. You would wake up in the morning, or you could do it in the evening. You would write down 3 things you were grateful for. Mm-hmm. And I remember a few years ago, I did this exercise, and at the beginning it was kind of interesting, and then it started to feel mechanic, empty. Now my understanding is that gratefulness is something that arises naturally when you let go of everything you think you know about anything. So being grateful is a very natural state of mind. Mm-hmm. And it comes from you reconnecting to the experience of being alive. Mm-hmm. And nobody can take you away, can take that feeling away from you. Mm-hmm. So even if things are not looking great on the outside, and sometimes, like, being human, we're stuck in those very low energy states of mind, and because we start thinking about something, we would love to do A, instead we have to do B. We would love to go to point A, instead we have to stay at point B. Whatever, we all have our own good reasons. But at the same time, when we let go of everything and we sort of fall back to that original state, that is, again, the first, looking at life as it is, not filtered by our concepts, our prejudices, our ideas, even our dreams, because they can get in the way. Yeah. Then we can find that very beautiful, pristine feeling of being alive, and that comes with gratefulness. Like, it's part of the bundle. You look around and you see a different thing. Whereas when you look at life through the filter of your concepts, that's obviously a different experience. And sometimes it looks great, some other times not so much.
But I think I'd like to move to Daniela now. And you're a younger person. You don't remember the Second World War, right? You were not there. And Europe was built on the idea of preventing war. So somehow I feel the good life is peace, isn't it? I mean, that when we wake up in the morning, we have peace most places in Europe. How do you feel about that? As a young person, do you appreciate that?
I mean, who of you was there? No, no. But apart from that, I mean, I feel you're right, and I feel that many people of my age don't recall this idea of Europe as being built to ensure peace. I think we've moved on to different objectives, and you touched on this before, but I really think that the pandemic has given us something, has, let's say, helped us to appreciate free movement, which I think now is the thing that my generation should be most grateful for, in terms of when we're speaking about being grateful. I think that's one of the things that I think of about Europe. So yes, true. I'm probably no longer thinking about about peace in the sense I'm used to that idea. But now that free movement has disappeared, and you know, I come from Romania originally, and I moved to Italy when Romania was not part of the EU. So I really learned to appreciate free movement after Romania joined, but that was a long time ago, and I had forgotten the feeling. And now that borders are shut down, I start to really have that feeling again of how grateful one should be for free movement, really.
Do you think young people are ready to fight for the European idea? I mean, there's a lot of skepticism in many quarters of our populations. You know, a lot of, you know, we don't really care. Others have to sort it out for us. Do you think we can rely on young people to save and develop the European idea?
Well, potentially, yes. But I think we need to invest a little bit more in research and education in that perspective. At least in Italy, that's a sector that lags behind a little bit. Also because if not, you know, the values and ideas will be passed on from parents, not from school. And the ideas that are passed on for generations in the family can be sometimes sticky, can remain what they used to be, and that's where Euroscepticism maybe is passed on through.
Mhm.
So I really think in that sense the school and the community of education should let's say teach probably the younger generations about the positive things that Europe has brought about, and if not
Mhm.
schools, also through public, of course, media and communication um, platforms. That's a task that we should have, and of course, the EU is aware of this. We're trying to get closer to citizens, but
Mhm.
of course, there's more to do in this sense. Yeah.
But I'd like to ask the panel now. We heard the young voice, and what about you, older generations? Who should keep the European idea alive? I mean, it's a big challenge, isn't it? Or do you have high hopes for that? You think it's a piece of cake to keep Europe alive? Eileen.
I think, well, I was thinking back to why I'm so involved in European stuff. I actually went on to an EU social policy training for trainers, I don't know, a long time ago, 12 years ago or more, when I was younger, put it that way. And when I remember writing on my form, I remember stating at that time quite proudly I was an EU citizen, because being born in Belfast in Northern Ireland, it's hard to have an identity in such a way, if that makes sense. You know, I'm not looking 100% Irish or Northern Irish or British, of obviously of Chinese origin, but I was born here and brought up here and had every right to be what an EU citizen was doing. And I was working on the Vote at Your Home campaign when I met Roger Casal, and that's how I got involved with the Europeans at that stage, because I think Roger thought, you know, this person here in Northern Ireland is actually looking at European issues, but you know, I don't look, you know, that is European as such, but I'm a EU citizen. So in that way, I think what strikes me is the time in 2002 when the EU expansion came, and I was working with different migrants from different countries. I ended up working with 18 different nationalities in a Euro area outside Belfast, about 35 miles out, which had seen different nationalities coming. And we were working with different areas of inequalities. But put it this way, what connected me was the need for EU policy, something that connected us with legally and in a way that was in decision making. And I felt that's where we are. I hope that transpires to younger generations, because I think when you are connected and united together on areas that of common issues, and you can fight for those social justice areas or whatever you need in social policy, then it makes us much more stronger.
But now we are going to have a Future of Europe conference organized by the Commission. So that's the sort of the power circles of the Commission and the Council that organizes this conference. My question to you is, how can we make that into a discussion or a conversation that every citizen will be involved in or interested in? How do we make that happen? That's a challenge, isn't it?
How do we make everybody?
I mean, my local community, how do I get that local community to talk about the future of Europe? I guess that's maybe not the most what can I say, obvious thing for everyday citizens to talk about, but maybe I'm wrong.
A lot of our rights are anchored around human rights, which is in the European Parliament. We can't escape that. And I think that's where we need to understand more about what is involved in that. You know, if that's what Daniela says, young people understood what their rights were and how much Europe is. I mean, I looked it back there quickly. In 2012, you know, the EU was awarded Nobel Prize for Peace. You know, it's all in the areas of peace and democracy. But if we understand what those human rights issues and, you know, areas of policy that is affecting us, then I think that's where the citizens will have a say in it.
But isn't it kind of hard to get people to really feel solidarity with? I mean, how do we make that come about? That Danes feel really real solidarity with Italians, or with the Spanish, or with the Slovenians. Maybe it seems that people on screen here think it's easy. Or what's your take on that?
I think. Sorry, can I?
Yeah.
I think one of the problems is that we're not getting. You know, people should be excited about Europe because it is an exciting project. The problem is that it still feels, from here, Europe still kind of feels remote and technical.
Yeah.
And I think having more passion in that and saying, look, we're building something great. I've never received, for example, just an example, you don't need that, but how wonderful would it be to receive, you know, every European receives some kind of leaflet, whatever, like, hi, we are Europe. Let me tell you who we are, because not everyone has a master's degree in law or are interested in international affairs, whatever. Or the average housewife. Hello, maybe they've never heard of Europe in these terms. You know, they know that they kind of require some things to be done in a certain way. That can be annoying. But if you say, look, we're Europe, we're together. Let me tell you why this European project makes sense. Let me tell you why you're less different than you think from someone who lives in Denmark. What our roots are. Our history, and let me tell you why this project is exciting, why getting together would add to your life rather than take things away. So this is I think a level of conversation that we need to have, and having an exciting project is part of a good life, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, going together towards a future that we think is better than what we have now. You know, so from my point of view, I think it's really puzzling sometimes. And I don't know, because I'm not an expert, I don't know exactly what the role of the single countries is. This in mediating messages from Europe to, you know, European citizens in different countries. But that would be great. Like, I want to talk to you. I want Europe to talk to me, because now I am part of Europe. We are all part of Europe. We need to be engaged with something that speaks to everyone. And we have to go now, like, you know, we have to go past the money aspect, which was, of course, and peace is great. I think, as Daniela said, sometimes we forget that, but that's a massive achievement. So we have peace here, and things are likely to stay that way. But then there's the purely opportunity idea of, putting all our money together and stuff. But as you said, why should you people give money to Italians? Well, maybe being part of the same family would help.
Yeah, exactly. It's a kind of, if you follow the metaphor of the family feeling, or that with the European family, of course, it's do you appreciate your brothers and sisters and your nephews and your nieces? Do you do that, or you think, well, I mind my own business. I don't care about the nieces in Slovenia, and that's the challenge, I think. But if we go back to the topic of tonight, the good life. Do you think we have very different opinions about what the good life is in 27 member countries? Is it very different what we look at as a good life? Eileen, what do you think? Is it? I mean, do you think? I mean, you're. We could bring it also onto your Chinese heritage.
Well, yeah, I think good life could be, lots of different things and different entitlements of rights, and what you believe in. I was just looking at one that caught my eye, and it's one that we worked very hard for in Northern Ireland and Ireland, was the rights for abortion. And you can see how Poland is and how united the European Parliament worked on that. Calling now for the European Commission to act decisively, as it says here, to protect the lives and rights of women and girls.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of the other countries are joining forces, against the decision of Poland. I think when rights affect people, I think there are areas where we can be more united and understand what is the good life. EU was meant to be there to support the rights of women, children, minorities. It's meant to support us in all different things, whether it's from human trafficking, which I've worked in, or to areas of inequalities, housing, health, so on and so forth. When you talk about good life, it's very hard to say where you are in it, because it's a bit like Maslow's hierarchy, So for some people, it means shelter and accommodation over your head.
Mm-hmm.
And for others, we can get to the very top, maybe. Some days I'm at it, and some days I'm not, Povl, where you're at self-actualization period, where you start to understand yourself and you're content with things. But if you don't have those pillars in society to help you, if you don't have a house or a roof over your head,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in poverty, it's very difficult to understand what is a good life. So everything's at a different level.
I agree, but maybe then the good life is the will to engage in political fight. It seems that when you say all the sort of bigger issues, political issues, that they need to be solved in a way together by Europe, then the good life might be, a population that is willing to engage in political fight.
Democratic.
Democratic fight, yeah.
I'd be interested to hear what Daniela think, or Michael.
Yeah, Michael.
Maybe, yeah, Michael, you want to go first?
No, Daniela, ladies first.
Okay.
Ladies first.
Okay. So I wanted to. I think the good life can potentially also be the freedom not to engage in politics at all. But that, of course, we are all here people who get engaged, so it's probably we are a bit biased in that. But going back also to the question of whether 27 different countries have different understanding of the good life, well, of course, depending on what aspect of the good life we talk about, I think it's fair to acknowledge that there are differences, and that if we want to engage citizens and get them closer to the EU, make them understand what the EU does for them, we need to start by acknowledging those differences and targeting population in the 27 different countries in different way, depending on what their understanding is. the EU, yes, was born to keep peace through economic, mainly cooperation. And we see, I don't have a background in economics, so I cannot go too deep into this, but we see a very different understanding of how member states make use of the EU finances now, especially between southern and northern countries. So I definitely think it's worth acknowledging those differences and probably sending a leaflet to each EU citizen in different countries showing what the EU does in return for the money that they are paying to the EU.
That's a communication issue from the Commission, basically, that you're looking for.
Well, not only. No. I mean, there are people who campaign against the EU. Why shouldn't we campaign for the EU more proactively in our state as citizens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Michael?
There is something that I wanted to say for a while now, and that is when you mentioned about what people think and what people feel in various countries. I believe that one of the problems that we have, and in theory it could be solved if there is a decision collectively from member states, is to include in the educational system, in the national curriculums in every country, some classes, perhaps modules about the EU. I mean, as Daniel said, I mean, yeah, okay, not everyone has had the opportunity and was lucky enough perhaps to have a master's in the subject, but even those of us that we had the opportunity to do that, quite often we're getting confused about how the EU structure actually works and what it does, and there are all these technical aspects that allow the opportunity to some populists to claim that, of course, it's a very bureaucratic or faceless institution. So I think this is something that hasn't been seen properly from the leadership, not obviously now, but I mean throughout the decades of the existence of the EEC originally, and then the EU since 1992. And this is something that has to radically change. The younger generations actually should be educated, should understand what it is all about, in order to avoid further problems in the future in other countries. I mean, the vast majority of people don't understand what was the benefit of free movement. Now that actually some people don't have it anymore, and millions of people don't have it. All the UK citizens don't have the same rights anymore. Overnight, they were taken away from them, and these were rights that some of these citizens were actually born into, because they don't forget the UK joined in 1973. I was born with these rights because Greece joined in 1981. So these are the kind of things that we take them for granted, and yes, and it's like peace. I mean, peace we have enjoyed in the last decades, the greatest and longest period of peace in Europe for 1,000 years. I mean, this is something that, again, people are taking it for granted. I mean, my parents, for example, my father was born and he had to, before the Second World War, so he endured, as many people, and obviously like his siblings, never mind his own parents, the Nazi occupation of Greece. I mean, so these kind of problems that we're facing now about the shape of the bananas and other two very important subjects cannot be compared with the problems that our ancestors and forebears had. And the younger generations, again, they don't really understand sometimes why this is so important and what was the reason, as you mentioned earlier, Povl, that led to the nations to come together, and this was peace. And because we've achieved it and we experienced it and we're getting used to it, sometimes we don't appreciate. We don't appreciate sometimes the most obvious and fundamental stuff in our life.
But I totally agree, and we're getting towards the end of our conversation, and I think I'd like to finish by changing the angle a little bit on what we're talking about. Let me hear, what's the importance of reading a book, listening to some music, going to the theater in terms of the good life for you personally? I mean, would you reveal a little bit about that, Eileen? For you personally, consuming some kind of culture, is it important to you, or what's your
Yes,
personal?
totally. I did see a comment there about living and working wherever you wish to, from one of the people participating this evening, and thank you for that. I have been running an Erasmus Plus project for the last 2 to 3 years, and last May I should have been in Greece, Michael, and I've never been to Greece. It was one of the ones I was looking forward to most of all out of my partners. No offense to Daniel. I've been to Italy the year before that, and to Turkey. But yes, culture is really important, and anytime I go and travel, you'll find me stuck in the museum for ages.
Okay.
Don't come out, and I appreciate the art, the beauty,
Yeah.
Drawings. So at the minute, I can't do that. I know there are virtual tours, but it's not the same thing.
So going to a museum is part of the good life for you.
Yeah,
What
for
about
me.
you, Daniel? Well, you have a lot of books behind you, so.
Yeah, they're not just for show. I like. So reading is definitely part of a good life. That's me. I think culture in general, it gives you a different layer of understanding of reality. It gives you depth. It gives you.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, one of our intellectual heroes, Umberto Eco, said, it's like living different lives when you read books. And of course, going to museums and listening to music and everything. It sounds really banal. I mean, I'm not saying anything particularly new here.
No, well, I mean, a lot of people don't read books, so I think it's worth mentioning the enjoyment you can have from reading books or going to the movies and stuff like that. So I think it's important to think about in terms of the good life. What about you, Michael? You read a book once in a while?
I do. Obviously, not only books, but also articles. I'm interested, of course, in history, in politics, and coming, from a country with a very rich cultural background. Of course, I enjoy going to the museums. Another perk of living in the UK is that this is for free, and again, it will be great for people to go and see that. Of course, because of the pandemic, I haven't been able to go to the cinema. I would love to do that when the time comes. But I mean, yeah, even the most fundamental things, as I said earlier, like this, these are things that we miss, and they don't even cost a lot of money. Even, see your friends in your own house, which is for free. It cannot be taken for granted anymore.
Okay, and Daniela, you get the last word of this conversation.
Yes, and by the way, in the last comments we had coming in on Facebook, it appears that having the full enjoyment of our human, economic, social, and political rights is what people see as the good life, more than other things. Anyways, yes, I definitely agree with the others. I mean, having being exposed to some form of, let's say, cultural activities is a way of breaking from our busy life, even because even with the pandemic, it's quite busy. And it's like going to a museum. I think it's another thing that we started to really appreciate with the pandemic, because now museums are closed in many, many countries, or theaters or cinemas. So it's definitely something. Now we're left with reading books. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot for taking part in this conversation. And I think we managed to have a wonderful hour where we brought Europeans closer together. I think we know now much more about each other, and it's really symbolic in terms of bringing many more Europeans together on screen or face to face when we can meet again. So thanks a lot for participating, and have a wonderful evening. I guess you will watch Netflix after this program. So have fun on Netflix. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.